My friends, as we stand on the threshold of this new year, there is a peculiar feeling in the air, a mixture of hope and hesitation, the knowledge that the future is unwritten, yet the fear that it may remain forever as such. But this, my friends, is the very essence of life. Life itself is unfinished, and thus it offers us the thrilling opportunity to shape it with our hands, with our hearts, and with our minds. So I ask you today, how shall we make 2025 the best year? I invite you to consider the possibilities. I invite you to reach ahead. As we stand on the brink of a new year, there's a sense that time is both precious and fleeting, a resource that slips away regardless of our awareness or intentions. We often hear that the future is uncertain, and indeed, it is. But the true challenge lies not in the uncertainties of what may come, but in the realization that despite the unknowns, the future is ours to shape. How we live today, the choices we make, the values we choose to uphold, and the actions we take determine the course of what is to come. The first and perhaps most important key to making 2025 the best year of our lives is to take full responsibility for shaping our future, not as passive observers, but as active participants in our own stories. We live in a world where the tendency to defer responsibility can be overwhelming. It's easy to blame circumstances, the government, our upbringing, or even the people around us for the difficulties we face. And there is truth in the idea that we do not control every external factor. Yet the real power, the true freedom we possess, lies in our ability to control how we respond to those factors. The weather may be raining, but it is we who decide whether to find shelter or dance in the storm. The mistakes of the past may haunt us, but it is in our power to choose whether we are defined by them or learn from them. No one can take away that power unless we surrender it. Responsibility, in its truest form, is not about blame. It's about recognizing that we have the ability to influence the direction of our lives, no matter how small the steps we take may seem. Taking responsibility for shaping the future means that we stop waiting for the world to align perfectly before we act. It means understanding that there will never be a perfect moment. The truth is, we don't need the world to make things easy. We need the courage to step forward and make things happen despite the challenges. It is through this very act of deciding to move forward, regardless of imperfections, that we carve out our future. To take responsibility is also to embrace the idea that we are not victims of life's circumstances, but architects of our own destiny. Our failures do not define us, nor do the judgments others cast upon us. Our past, no matter how marred with mistakes or regret, holds only as much power over us as we choose to give it. The narrative we tell ourselves about who we are and what we can become is ours to rewrite. It's a narrative that requires us to face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves, our fears, our weaknesses, and our shortcomings, without flinching, and still choose to move forward. It's a choice that places the responsibility of growth and change squarely on our own shoulders. There is no one else who can make the necessary adjustments in our lives but ourselves. This responsibility is not just about big decisions or monumental changes. It also involves the small, everyday actions that accumulate over time. Every decision, every choice we make, no matter how trivial it may seem in the moment, has the potential to shape our future. The food we eat, the habits we form, the people we spend time with, the way we spend our time, each of these contributes to who we become. The future is shaped not by grand gestures, but by the small, seemingly insignificant actions we take every day, the small habits we allow to form, whether positive or negative, have far-reaching consequences that we may not fully grasp until they have already begun to define us. Taking responsibility for shaping the future also requires a deep level of self-awareness. It is not enough to simply move forward blindly, hoping that we will stumble upon success. We must first ask ourselves difficult questions. Who are we? What do we truly value? What are we willing to sacrifice to achieve the things that matter most? These are not questions to be answered lightly, nor are they questions to be answered once and then forgotten. They require constant reflection and reevaluation as we grow and change. As we make decisions, we must ask ourselves whether those choices align with the person we want to become. If we are not careful, we can slip into habits that serve only the immediate gratifications of the moment, rather than the long-term fulfillment of our higher aspirations. One of the most profound ways in which we shape our future is by the people we choose to surround ourselves with. The energy, attitudes, and values of those we allow into our lives significantly influence the direction we take. The old saying that we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with holds a great deal of truth. So, if we wish to grow, to push ourselves beyond our current limitations, it's vital that we seek out those who challenge us, who inspire us, who help us see possibilities that we may not have considered on our own. But it is also important to remember that the responsibility of shaping our future lies within ourselves, not in the people around us. We cannot blame others for holding us back, nor can we wait for others to make the first move. It's up to us to seek out the environments, the conversations, and the people who will help us stretch, grow, and move in the direction we want to go. This responsibility also comes with the recognition that setbacks, failures, and mistakes are inevitable. It is often said that success is not final and failure is not fatal. Indeed, it is how we respond to these moments that determines the course of our lives. The fear of failure can paralyze us if we let it. We can become so obsessed with avoiding mistakes that we stop taking the risks necessary for growth. But failure is not a sign that we are incapable or that we are on the wrong path. Failure is merely the feedback we need to adjust our approach. It is not something to fear, but something to embrace as part of the journey. Each failure holds within it the seeds of future success, if only we have the wisdom to learn from it and the resolve to move forward. Lastly, taking responsibility for shaping our future means that we commit to a life of action. It is easy to talk about our dreams, to make plans and set goals, but it is the act of following through that ultimately leads to change. There will be moments when the path seems too long, when the obstacles seem insurmountable, and when the motivation to keep going wanes. But it is in these moments, more than any other, that we must dig deep and choose to act. Action is the bridge between the vision we hold in our hearts and the reality we experience in our lives. It is the engine that drives us forward, even when the road ahead is unclear. To take responsibility is to embrace the uncomfortable reality that nothing changes without effort and no dream is achieved without persistence. The future often seems like an intimidating, unpredictable landscape, one that we feel powerless to influence. Too many of us wait for the perfect moment to begin, to act, or to change. We tell ourselves that when the conditions are just right, when we have more time, more resources, or when the situation is more favorable, that's when we will take the leap, make the change, or pursue our dreams. But waiting for the ideal conditions is a trap that keeps us stuck. The truth is, there will never be a time when everything falls into place neatly. Circumstances will never be perfect, and the world around us will always present challenges, obstacles, and setbacks. Therefore, to truly take charge of our future, we must learn the essential skill of acting, regardless of external circumstances. Life, by its very nature, is unpredictable. We cannot control the weather, the economy, or the actions of others. These forces are beyond our influence, and to try to wait for everything to align before we act is a futile exercise in procrastination. Waiting for everything to be just right can turn into an endless cycle of inaction, where we become paralyzed by the uncertainties that life throws at us. However, it is in our response to these uncertainties that we find our power. Waiting for perfect circumstances is the antithesis of growth. Growth comes from acting despite uncertainty, from choosing to move forward even when the path ahead is unclear. When we act regardless of external circumstances, we begin to understand that control doesn't lie in waiting for everything to align, but in our ability to navigate and adapt to the challenges we encounter. Every great accomplishment, every meaningful change comes from a series of imperfect actions. The entrepreneurs who have changed the world didn't wait for a perfect market. They took the first step, often in the face of enormous risk. The artists who create timeless works of beauty didn't wait for inspiration to strike perfectly. They created, even on days when they felt uninspired. The athletes who reached the highest levels didn't wait for ideal conditions to train. They pushed through physical and mental discomfort, often in less than ideal circumstances. The key is to take action, not because the moment is perfect, but because the only way to change the future is through consistent effort, even when conditions aren't ideal. The first step toward progress, whether in a career, a personal goal, or a relationship, is often the hardest. It is the moment when we choose to move despite the voice of doubt that whispers in our ear, telling us that the timing is wrong. And while that voice may never fully silence itself, it is important to understand that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in spite of it. By choosing to act regardless of circumstances, we start to build momentum. Momentum is powerful. It takes a small, seemingly insignificant action to set a series of events in motion. Once we take the first step, we begin to open doors and uncover opportunities that we would have missed had we remained stagnant. Momentum breeds confidence and clarity. With every action, no matter how small, we begin to gain new insight, solve problems, and adapt. The more we act, the more we learn, and the more we build. This cycle propels us forward, turning a once uncertain path into a journey of progress. Cancer risk, of course. It is also crucial to remember that acting in the face of adversity strengthens our character. The challenges we encounter along the way, whether it's a difficult project, a personal setback, or an unexpected obstacle, are not barriers but opportunities for growth. These are the moments that shape us, that test our resolve, and that build the resilience needed to navigate the future. When we face these challenges head-on, we cultivate a mindset that thrives on adversity rather than shrinking from it. This attitude of resilience becomes the foundation upon which we build our future successes. In many ways, acting regardless of external circumstances is the ultimate expression of agency. It is a recognition that, while we cannot control everything, we have full control over how we choose to respond to what comes our way. It places the responsibility firmly in our own hands, enabling us to move forward with purpose and determination, regardless of what the world presents. The obstacles we face may be difficult. By acting in the face of uncertainty, we take ownership of our lives, and in doing so, we create the future we want, one step at a time. Time is one of the most valuable, yet most fleeting resources we have. Once it is spent, it cannot be reclaimed. Each day that passes, every hour that slips away, is gone forever. We often underestimate the weight of this truth until we look back and realize just how much of our time has been consumed by things that ultimately don't contribute to our growth, happiness, or well-being. In a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, it becomes increasingly important to recognize that time is not simply a commodity to be used. It is the canvas on which we paint our lives, and how we choose to spend it will determine the quality of the future we create. To truly understand the value of time, we must first recognize how easily it can slip through our fingers without us even noticing. We live in an age where distractions are everywhere. Social media, the constant stream of news, and the pool of endless entertainment. These distractions, while offering momentary pleasure or escape, often come at the cost of deeper, more meaningful pursuits. We allow ourselves to be pulled away from the things that truly matter, from the tasks that will move us toward our long-term goal, to chase after the fleeting pleasure of the immediate. Over time, these distractions add up, and before we know it, hours or even days have been lost to things that do not serve us. This is where the importance of guarding our time comes into play. It is not just about filling our days with productivity. It's about being intentional with how we choose to use the time we are given. The people we spend time with, the activities we engage in, and the choices we make all have a profound impact on how our time is spent. Time, after all, is a reflection of our values and priorities. If we are not conscious of how we spend it, we may find that we have wasted time on things that are ultimately not aligned with our true goals or aspirations. One of the most important aspects of valuing our time is learning to prioritize. It's easy to become overwhelmed by the multitude of demands that life places on us: work, relationships, responsibilities, and countless other obligations. But if we do not learn to prioritize the most important tasks, we may find ourselves constantly reacting to the demands of the moment, rather than actively shaping our lives according to our deeper values. Prioritization requires that we reflect on what truly matters to us, and make conscious choices about where we focus our energy. Not everything requires our attention, and not everything deserves our time. Learning to say no to protect our time from unnecessary distractions is a key part of this process. Time is also a resource that cannot be replenished. Once an hour, a day, or a year is gone, we cannot get it back. This is why it is so important to make the most of the time we have now. We often think of time as an infinite resource, assuming that we can always do what we need to do tomorrow or next week. But the truth is, the longer we delay or put off the important things in our lives, the less time we have to actually achieve them. The tomorrow we wait for may never come, or it may arrive too late to make the impact we desire. Every moment we hesitate is a moment we could have used to move closer to our goals, to nurture relationships, or to grow as individuals. By treating time with the urgency it deserves, we can make more conscious decisions that bring us closer to the life we want to live. It is also crucial to recognize that time should not only be seen in terms of what we accomplish. The way we spend our time shapes not only our future, but our present as well. We often become so focused on achieving or getting ahead that we neglect the present moment, missing out on the joy and fulfillment that come from simply living fully in the here and now. The quality of our time is just as important as its quantity. It is not enough to simply be busy or productive. We must also be present in our experiences, giving our full attention to the task at hand. Whether it is working on a project, spending time with loved ones, or simply resting and recharging. When we are present, we allow ourselves to fully absorb the moments that make up our lives, creating a sense of richness and fulfillment that cannot be measured by external accomplishments alone. Time management, then, is not just about organizing tasks or scheduling every minute of our day. It's about being intentional with how we allocate our time, being mindful of where we invest our energy, and recognizing that our time is finite. We must ask ourselves whether the way we spend our time aligns with our deeper desires, values, and goals. Are we spending time doing things that truly matter? Or are we getting caught up in the noise of the world around us? Are we investing our time in relationships that nourish us, in activities that challenge us, and in projects that align with our purpose? Or are we allowing time to slip away without thought, letting it be consumed by distractions and obligations that ultimately don't serve us? This is where the power of reflection comes in. Taking time to reflect on how we are spending our time allows us to gain clarity about where we are and where we want to go. It's an opportunity to check in with ourselves, to see whether we are on the right path, and to make adjustments if necessary. Regularly taking stock of how we are using our time helps us stay focused on what truly matters, ensuring that we are not drifting through life without intention. It also helps us recognize when we are veering off course or falling into old patterns of procrastination or avoidance. Time is a mirror of our priorities, and by looking closely at how we spend it, we can gain insight into what we truly value and what we are willing to work for. Moreover, guarding our time is not just about avoiding distractions or managing our schedules. It is also about recognizing the importance of rest and recovery. In our culture, there is often a tendency to equate productivity with constant action, leading us to believe that we must always be working, always be striving, always be doing something in order to be valuable. But time spent resting, reflecting, and rejuvenating is just as essential to our well-being as time spent in active pursuit of our goals. We cannot continue to give our best if we are running on empty. Guarding our time means protecting not only the moments we devote to our work and ambitions, but also those moments of stillness that allow us to recharge and reconnect with ourselves. Time is a currency we all spend, whether we realize it or not. The question we must ask ourselves is this: are we spending it wisely? Are we investing our time in the things that matter most? Or are we allowing it to slip away unnoticed? The answer to this question will determine not only the success we experience in the future, but the quality of the life we lead today. To truly make progress in life, one must learn not to seek approval from others, but to focus on understanding the world around them. In a society where validation and praise are often considered markers of success, it can be tempting to measure our worth by the opinions of others. We seek approval from friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers, believing that their acceptance will affirm our value and guide us toward the right decision. However, the pursuit of approval can easily become a trap, preventing us from growing into the people we are meant to be. Instead, we must shift our focus away from the need to be understood by others and move toward the deeper and more fulfilling goal of understanding the world and ourselves more fully. Seeking approval is often rooted in a fear of rejection or criticism. We want to be liked, accepted, and admired, and we allow those desires to shape the choices we make, the actions we take, and even the way we see ourselves. The danger in this is that by constantly seeking external validation, we place our sense of self-worth in the hands of others. We become dependent on their judgments and opinions, allowing them to dictate how we feel about ourselves and how we measure success. This can lead to a life spent trying to please others rather than pursuing our own true purpose. We may find ourselves making decisions based on what will earn us approval, rather than what aligns with our values or aspirations. The quest for approval also tends to narrow our focus. When we are constantly looking to others for affirmation, we become overly concerned with how we are perceived, often at the expense of deeper, more meaningful exploration. Instead of asking ourselves what we truly believe or what we genuinely desire, we start asking, what will others think? This external focus limits our ability to understand the world as it truly is. This external focus limits our ability to understand the world as it truly is, to become more about crafting a version of ourselves that others will approve of, rather than engaging in the real, unfiltered discovery of who we are and what we are meant to do. To break free from the cycle of seeking approval, we must learn to redirect our attention toward understanding the world and ourselves more deeply. Understanding is a much richer and more fulfilling pursuit than seeking approval. When we focus on understanding, we are engaging in a process of self-discovery and growth. It's a journey that requires introspection, open-mindedness, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Rather than being driven by the desire for external validation, we begin to focus on expanding our knowledge, broadening our perspectives, and developing a deeper understanding of what is truly important. The key to this shift lies in cultivating a mindset that values learning over pleasing others. We begin to see our experiences not as opportunities to gain approval, but as opportunities to explore, question, and discover. This mindset allows us to grow authentically, free from the constraints of external judgment. Instead of worrying about how we are perceived, we can focus on how we can contribute to the world, how we can learn from others, and how we can grow in ways that matter most to us. This shift also involves learning to trust ourselves. When we no longer depend on the approval of others to determine our worth, we free ourselves to make decisions based on what feels true and right to us. We begin to value our own opinions and instincts, knowing that we are the ones who will ultimately live with the consequences of our choices. This self-trust is not born out of arrogance or stubbornness, but out of a deep understanding that we are capable of navigating life's challenges and finding our own path. It allows us to make decisions from a place of inner clarity, without the fear of judgment or rejection clouding our judgment. Furthermore, focusing on understanding the world around us encourages curiosity and growth. It invites us to step beyond our comfort zones and explore new ideas, perspectives, and experiences. Instead of limiting ourselves to familiar viewpoints or ways of thinking, we begin to seek out opportunities to learn from diverse sources. We no longer view life as a series of approval-seeking rituals, but as an ongoing journey of discovery. In doing so, we build a more resilient and adaptable approach to life, one that is not contingent on whether others agree with us, but on our ability to engage with the world on our own terms. In the end, the pursuit of approval is a shallow and ultimately unfulfilling way to live. It keeps us tethered to the opinions of others, hindering our growth and limiting our potential. By shifting our focus toward understanding of ourselves, of the world, and of the people around us, we begin to live more authentically. We no longer need external validation to feel worthy or capable. Instead, we trust in our own capacity to navigate life, to learn from our mistakes, and to shape our future based on what we understand, rather than what others think. This journey of understanding is not just about knowledge. It is about becoming the person we are meant to be and living a life that reflects our deepest values.